Alright, so here we go with the speaker ring light repair on my virtual pinball machine. For those that are just picking up this particular video without seeing the others, this ring was the first one I made for my speaker panel to give it the LED lighting effect, and I decided to use the commercial end of the ring, or excuse me, the reel of lights, thinking that my connection would probably be a little less stable. And I wanted to make sure that there was no problems with any kind of failure at this point. I did realize, though, that on this one, I went ahead and made my own. I have no problems with this ring. It came out perfect as far as from a lighting perspective. This one's got, a good inch in here that's missing, and most people don't notice it when playing the game, but I notice it. So it's going to go. We're going to take it out, and we're going to construct a new cable from the remnants from the lighting project where we did both the rings and the back box, just using parts that were left over. So what we're going to need for this is going to be an end that will allow us to hook into the system. This end of the cable will hook to the light strip to create our piece. Yeah, so let's get. All right. The biggest pain in doing this process is getting rid of the rubber coating that's on the top of the strip. You've got to expose those copper tabs that will allow your connector to make contact with to give power to the strip. It's a pain in the butt. It's just some sort of rubbery, flexible gel that's on top of it, kind of in some just a semi-oval shape. You can see it there. We got to scrape all that off of one end. That'll allow us to connect our connector to it and create the circuit. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And on this particular end, you can see the line that's in place for cutting with a scissor. That's they segment it in every 3 or 4. Actually, it's 3 LEDs. Gives you a place to cut, of course, and exposes that contact strip, but you have to get the rubber off the top. So I'm going to clean this up real quick before we get started, because there's no reason for you to sit here and watch me do it. I'm going to take an X-Acto knife and probably score across where the letters are, and then try to scrape that back. And then it's just a little bit of manipulation with either your fingers or scraping it with something, and just trying not to damage the actual copper contacts themselves. So let me go ahead and get that prepped, and then we'll get started. All right, just to show where we're at with this, since I didn't record actually trimming the rubber back off the top of the LEDs. But in this particular situation, there's a little piece that holds the strip down in the plug. So you're going to have to peel back the rubber a little farther than just to expose the copper. So what I did is I took that line where that first LED was, and I took a small X-Acto knife and just slowly pressed into the rubber to kind of cut it along that line, and then peeled it back with my finger. That's got us in pretty good shape. You probably could just kind of finagle the edges past the copper and leave the cable. You're still going to need to have it exposed all the way to the end of this clip, so where this clip will clip down. Most of the pressure is going to be on those little spring-loaded clips on the cable side anyway, that's going to hold this in place. So let's go ahead and make sure, first of all, plus to black, blue, red, green, blue, red, green, so we're lined up where we're supposed to be. And that creates the cable, if I can clip it. All right, so that's this end. Now what we're going to have to do is go ahead and remove our old one with our crappy adhesive, as you can see. And while the commercial end would have been nice to keep, we got to fix our problem. All right, I'm going to hand the camera to my wife so she can tape this while we kind of figure out what we're going to do here. So we're going to have to cut the length our LED strip. So we're going to kind of line up how much we need. Looks like I'm going to have plenty left, so that's good. Figure out where we're at. See where it's going to be best to cut it. So kind of looking at it. That's a solder joint. That's really unfortunate. But I think we can cut there anyway. So this is where they've linked in to continue the strip. But we're going to cut there. So as long as we're past this last LED, we should be okay. And I think what we may have to do is just cut it a little bit long, go plug it in, and let's see if it's acceptable the way it is, or if we're going to need to cut back into the cable a little bit into a different area. I've got a feeling that's going to be okay. It's just me being anal about it. So let's go see what we got. So here we are at the machine. We're going to go ahead and test our layout and see if it's going to do what we want it to do. Make sure that the our 1-inch gap that we're trying to eliminate in the lighting originally is gone. Since we've got a kind of a sticky situation with an LED right there in a crease point. So let's see what we can do. Of course, I'm going to hand the camera to my wife. And again, arrow to arrow, which is positive to positive. Plug that in. Alright, so we've got lights. And what we're going to do is kind of just dry fit it. And there's that solder joint we were talking about in the first part of the video, where we're going to come in and we're going to cut it right there at that joint. Normally that would be a regular cut point, but this is where they've at the factory connected some strips to keep the strip going. So we'll work around it. I don't think it'll be a big deal. We'll see what happens. If we come back and cut this and it doesn't work, then we might be in trouble, because I'm not sure if I may have enough lights left on the reel to do this one more time. So it's going to be close. But anyway, next video, we'll be back on the table, seeing if we can get this cut and get it stuck in there for you. Something else I noticed as I was checking out the strip I took off is that it has some double-sided tape applied to it. So the issue I have with the cheap, and I think it's hit or miss, LED strips that I bought was the fact that the adhesive was pulling off the back. And it's not just that it doesn't stick, is that it doesn't stick to the strip. So it looks like what I did is I went ahead and removed it from the strip altogether and then applied some two-sided tape, Scotch premium double-sided tape. Works like a charm. It's cheap, so you might need some of that if you end up with crappy strip adhesive like I ended up with. So alright, we're about to the point where we're going to go ahead and get started with cutting our lighting strip and going through the process of getting the adhesive fixed. So we'll have that in the next segment. Alright, so we decided that our cut's going to be at where we would normally have a cut area, but since the company used it to connect, to keep their strip running continuously, we're going to have to go ahead and kind of work around the normal cut spot. So we're just going to cut to the inside edge of the solder joints. So we're going to try to stay away from that LED and not damage it, because we really need that light to complete our circle. So let's see what happens here. All right. Seemed to work well. Let's kind of dry fit it again and see what we've got. We'll carry it back to the machine one more time for a test before we go through all the taping and stuff. So it looks like it's going to fit pretty good. And the two lights right there at the joint where we had about an inch prior that had no lights are going to have lights. So let's go carry it to the machine and see what we get. All right, so we're back at the machine. Going to go ahead and do another dry fit, make sure that our lighting is all the way around the circle before we go ahead and permanently adhere it to the ring. So again, arrow on your plug to the arrow on the connector. And there we go. And looking at our spot where we had our gap in the lighting before, it's going to be fixed. So looks like we're good to go. We can go ahead and take this and do our adhesive replacement that most people won't have to do, but I'm going to have to do. So I'm going to take some time to peel the adhesive off the back of the ring and then line the ring with double-sided tape and then come back and stick this in place. And at that point, it's ready to put back in the machine. All right, so we've got everything installed back in the machine, and let's see what we accomplished with our ring that had a dead spot in it. And we have fixed the dead spot. I do notice a little bit of, just a slight separation between the strip and the actual ring, and that was due to the fact that we had that LED right there on the hinge point. So those are just little things that you guys can play around with when you're creating, your setup, to kind of keep in mind that you can take that out if you get a little bit more creative than I was at that point, I guess is the best way to put it. Not sure, but I can deal with that versus having the light missing from that spot. Yeah, it just looked terrible. So, and also that position was here. I didn't like the way it was putting pressure on the joint next to the vachet, so I decided to go ahead and I rotated my slot in the ring 90 degrees. So there's the light bar, the light bar. Speaker panel in all its glory. During the day, still looks really good. And we got the Walking Dead flicker effect going on, which is always awesome. And I think that's it for the speaker panel. I'll do something with the back box next.